some of Bernie Taupin's best lyrics combined with Elton John just nailing the melody and the arrangement. So that's a double record by one person, two people, but that just rides really well. Like there's so many changes in moods and rhythms and sentiments, and it's I mean, they start with an instrumental,
right?
And it's a great instrumental. I've seen him do it live like 5 times. I just love it.
Yeah, it is, and it holds up. A lot of people during that period of time would, and they even talked about it on this special, would try the concept of a double album, and there'd just be a lot of filler on there. And in this particular case, what some people might consider filler, like the Roy Rogers song, is just a great song. It's full of great songs. So really.
The other thing is, what makes it special is, okay, the Beatles did a double album, but there were 3 songwriters. And if you're down to one songwriter filling 2 records, even though, okay, an album then was 45 minutes pretty much. So you had to fill 90 minutes of music, but that's a lot if you're trying to put songs on the radio and you're writing 3-minute songs. So there's not a throwaway on that record. There's no filler, I don't think.
Not right.
And it might be because I'm, when I first heard it, I was probably in junior high, and it's one of my favorite records. And so I might be a little biased, but I don't think so. There's a lot going on that record, and I don't see any soft spots.
Well, I won't be watching it, but one of the ones I have in my queue here, because maybe somebody else wants to come over and watch it with me, is Dark Side of the Moon. So there's a lot of these that are out there, and they're really
I've seen a lot of those.
Yeah, it's cool. It's really well done, and I like the engineering process of it and the backstories. And Gus Dudgeon is really good in this one too. The producer.
Yeah, he died recently.
Yeah,
and he didn't. His anniversary of his death was recent. Sorry, yeah,
right.
But yeah, I think he's one of those producers like Roy Halley with Paul Simon, who's kind of overshadowed by the artists he worked with, because those guys made a huge difference in how those records sounded. And the other one to find is, Fleetwood Mac's Rumors, which is like a Beach Boys record, and now I just completely lost the name of the engineer there. That's like, he sits with Lindsey Buckingham. There's so many tracks going on, and then they just remove them one by one, and you hear this little thing in the back that you didn't notice, but then you notice it the next time. It's great.
Yeah, one of the ones that I watched recently that was great was Damn the Torpedoes by Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. And, sometimes they'll strip it down and they'll say, hey, this guy over here was playing a trash can or something. And, you'll hear stuff like that. So it's really a cool idea, and it's fun. And if you search those out, that would create
it was like the whole McCartney with Rick Rubin thing. Like, oh, wait, here's this. What's this? Here's the story behind this little filigree we did,
Right, exactly.
Amazing.
Well, we've got a big reunion coming up, which will make millions of people very happy, and maybe Tim and I sort of mildly interested. We'll talk about that. Some significant passings in the world of music. Someone who is attacking a solo album at the age of 63 with a tremendous past musical story. All that and a lot more coming up on Danny and Tim's Music Scene. It's part of Arts and Lifestyle Wednesday, presented by Cinematic Visions.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
It's always great to get an update from Dr. Brad Woodall from Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture. 8 locations all around Kansas City, including the newest one in Raytown.
We are very excited to join the Raytown community. We just took over for Dr. David Frey, who retired and has then shared all of his patients with us to take great care of.
They do it all year round, and that means in the fall as well, when people get back to raking leaves and participating in fall sports, all those kinds of things, right?
Back to school means back for fun. Full backpack, we can help as your chiropractor. If you're starting fall sports, we want to make sure you have that physical, and we want to make sure you're in great shape. And if injuries happen, we've got your back.
And you've got it all around Kansas City at 8 different locations for Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture. Visit asfca.com/Danny. That's asfca.com/Danny.
Enjoy all the excitement of football season at the 23rd Street Brewery. From the Jayhawks and college football to the NFL and even live-streamed Lawrence High and Free State football games, you can watch it all at the 23rd Street Brewery. Enjoy the games with your favorite menu item like the Bill Self Mac and Cheese, Naked Nachos, or the Haney Turkey Stack. And wash it all down with your favorite beer like a Wave the Wheat or Crimson Fog. 23rd Street Brewery on the corner of Clinton Parkway and Castled in Lawrence.
If you'd like to join these and other fine sponsors and market your business on Kansas City's #1 rated podcast, contact us at Danny@DannyClinkscale.com. Look forward to working with you.
Welcome back, and if you are into one of the biggest bands in England and Europe of the late 80s, early 90s, I'm not even quite sure of the exact time frame, and of course it is Oasis and the Fighting Gallagher brothers. I don't know what's, maybe somebody's got debts or somebody just got made an offer they couldn't refuse or whatever. So 25 years, I guess, after they last really worked together, the Gallaghers are going to get back together and hopefully not kill each other on stage and provide Oasis music for us. This should be interesting.
Yeah, so actually I was reading about this when they came out because I was in a discussion on Facebook about whether they should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And from my perspective, it was how much did their music change the world of music? Like, their music was not elemental. It wasn't life-changing. It was derivative of Brit rock. It was, there were bands that preceded them that obviously influenced them. But talking to some friends in this discussion, and their argument was it wasn't necessarily music, it's what it did. So their first record came out like 4 months after Kurt Cobain died. So Nirvana's gone. And then Oasis became, and arguably, the biggest band in the world.
Yes.
Like in Britain, the numbers were like 1 in 3 households had their records in, like, they were the Beatles numerically. That's all. Like, yeah. I'm not comparing them to the Beatles.
Oh, well, for instance, I watch the Premier League all the time, and I can't remember which team he's a fan of, but one of the Gallaghers is a fan of one of the Premier League teams. And if you watch a game, you're getting, in part, at least the TV feed, their American announcers or their American hired announcers, and they'll show Noel Gallagher like 6 times during the game, just because. Right. It's like Taylor Swift or something.
Yeah, but they impose themselves on the culture. But I can't deny that they overwhelmed things for several years. Like, they just imposed themselves. They barged into the whole culture, and with he would talk crap on anybody. Their feud with Blur was infamous, and their feud was infamous. And this was before social media, so it was all, you read about it on the tabloids. Like, there was a quote, like, they were on the tabloid covers more than the royal family at one point because they mattered that much. So I've got to give them credit. I love the first 2 records. The third one I like a lot, but I don't see a lot of difference from 1 to 3. It's just it's their influences are easy to discern. Okay, it's guitar, it's heavy guitar, it's blaring guitar, it's melodic, it's kind of irresistible. I love it, but after the third record, I'm like, you're doing the same thing. Okay, bye. So,
and they did kind of go by.
Well, they did eventually. They put out more records, but
right.
They didn't resonate with me. But I'm just going to say I don't want to. So there's a friend who's in a band that has been pretty big in this town, but he was the one I was going back and forth with about right. Should they be in the Hall of Fame. I'm like, and finally I said, you're right. Their numbers were huge. They influenced something because they were so big. So fine, I'll concede. But I mean, it's not going to bother me if they get in. But he just posted something like, Oasis is my Taylor Swift. I just maxed out all my credit cards. He's got tickets to see them in London and somewhere else.
Wow.
And he's a he's been around. He's been in bands that have toured, but he's like, this is like, it's like a resurrection for some of their fans. Like that they were, I'm never going to see them, and they're back to life.
Right.
And it's like speaking of Pixies, when I saw them for the first time, I never thought I'd see them again, but I saw them at the Uptown in front of with 1,800 other people. But he's going to be in Wembley Stadium 2 times. Like, it's going to be epic. I will definitely have an eye on that because I love. I'll be more interested in the reaction to people seeing them for the first time. People like my friend Jim. Like it's like, I'm glad you're having this opportunity.
Well, in keeping with that, I was looking the other day. I get this thing called Cora Digest that comes into I think I've mentioned it many times on this podcast, but it's just, it's free, so I keep getting it. It's actually, they send too many things, but they raise questions and people give answers. They're just regular folk who answer things. Sometimes they're really dumb and sometimes they're not. And this question came up about significant musical artists who aren't in the Rock Hall of Fame. Well, first of all, the list is about 400 long, so I'm not going to do that. But it is always kind of an interesting topic, and I'll just scroll down here and bring up a couple. And here, I'll understand. For you mentioned this, they aren't Oasis, but for instance, Boston was like a gigantic band, but only for like 3 albums. So I'd say no. But another one I
think that's kind of parallel with Oasis.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah,
I mean, Foreigner is the same way. Like they were a massive band, but
right. Yeah, we'll say another one. For instance, I would lean toward Bad Company being in the Rock Hall of Fame. I think they're great, but there were quite a few derivations of Paul Rodgers-led bands. Bad Company themselves still exist to this day, with Paul Rodgers on the front and Simon Kirke still playing guitar. Still plays guitar. I don't know how. So that would be one. I guess I would say yes. But even an individual name like. Because I've seen the documentary recently, Immediate Family. I mean, Waddy Wachtel. I can't imagine anybody who doesn't belong in a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame more than a session musician who's been on like everything in the world.
I mean, there ought to be a category for that. I don't think there is.
Right.
So, but also the outliers like Warren Zevon. I don't know. That guy. Whether or not he resonated as much as Oasis, and he clearly did not, but the way he's influenced songwriters in ways that we don't know, and he was so out there, so upside down and inside out as a performer and a songwriter and just a thinker. Like, how do you not recognize that? Give him his spot.
Right.
Because he has no traction over there. It's like he doesn't exist. So he's beloved, and he's beloved by people who love music, that's my take on it.
And he's just one of the most fun people to listen to talk, period. He's like a really snarky, sarcastic New York guy with an attitude. I mean, it's cool. Anyway, I'm just going to bring up one more. If you want to do this, just Google people who aren't in the Rock Hall of Fame. You can have discussion with your musical friends for hours on end. But prog bands never did very well in the Rock Band Hall of Fame. I'm a little astounded that Emerson, Lake, and Palmer aren't in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I mean, that's a little surprising to me, and I'm not even a fan.
Right. I mean, I'd have to look at the list of those kinds of bands who are.
I don't think Yes is in, I don't believe, but maybe they
Say
are.
what?
Yes? Or is Yes in? I don't know.
Yeah, they were more melodic, though.
Yeah.
And they were less, Yes was the first prog band I really started listening to because my brother bought the record with a roundabout on it. And
right.
How do you not love that song? Sorry.
Right. Yeah, it's a cool song. And locally, of course, our own little prog band from this area, Kansas, is not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So there you go. But on another note, as far as awards and things like that, the Country Music Association Music Awards of the Year nominations have come out, and there's real controversy, and I think deservedly so, that Beyonce was not nominated at all, and she had one of the best records of the year. In many people's estimation, it is a true country record, and she got none. And Post Malone, coming from an outside genre, he gets 4 nominations. Just doesn't seem right.
Right. So I don't think it's the album not being nominated. It's the single, the one
Right.
that took off and is my favorite song of the year. And not even a mention. Like, it's just so patently obvious. Like, well, that's